Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? It is D-Man coming back at it again with another YouTube video, and today we're going to be talking about coaches in the NFL and whether Mike Vrabel is in the top 10 or not, and I will tell you guys my top 10. You know, it's really tough to rank coaches because a lot of people just look at teams and say, oh, this team's good, they got a good coach. This team's bad, they have a bad coach. And that's valid, I'd probably say 70 to 90% of the time. You know, and there's nothing wrong with ranking coaches by their team record. But, you know, sometimes you got to dig a little bit deeper. And that's what we're going to do today. But Mike Vrabel is an interesting guy. We'll go ahead and go. I'll do my top 10, and then we will go into Vrabel, and I will tell you why I think he's a top 10 coach in the NFL. Now, when I look at my when I did this list, I'm looking at guys that coaches that either have been to a Super Bowl or have won a Super Bowl. And I'm looking at their team success. Obviously, that's pretty big one there. And then overall, just is he a good coach? So that's kind of what I'm looking at for my top 10. And I will go ahead and go into 11 through 15 too, just a little bit. I'll touch on a couple coaches that I have there, but for the most part, this is the top 10 video. So we're gonna go ahead and start off. I think the best coach in the NFL right now comes down to two coaches, I think. Two coaches, and it's going to be Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. Now, legacy standpoint, easily Bill Belichick. But right now, I think Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL. He's just very unique. His play style, his the stuff you see the Chiefs aren't what you normally see on, your average NFL team. They'll think outside the box. They do some, interesting plays here and there. So he's a very unique coach, and he's won a Super Bowl. And we've seen what the Chiefs have been able to do the past few years. We've seen what Andy Reid can do as a coach. We saw what he did at the Eagles too. So, in my opinion, Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL. Number two, like I said, it's either one or two, Andy Reid or Bill Belichick, and obviously have Andy Reid number one. So we're going to go ahead and say Bill Belichick is number two right behind Andy Reid. You could definitely argue that Bill Belichick is the best coach in the NFL. And I think that, excuse me, I think that you could just say, Bill Belichick has this many rings, so he's, you could make that argument. But right now, coming off the year Bill Belichick had last year, obviously you lose Tom Brady, and there's a lot of people that say Belichick's good just because of Tom Brady, and you could make that argument because Tom Brady left, went down to Tampa Bay with BA, and he won a Super Bowl, and we saw what happened to the Patriots this past year. So that's one of the more reasons why I have Belichick at 2, but you could definitely make the case he's number 1. Number 3. This is a tough one too. This is a real tough one for me because 3 through 10 is really interesting just because you could really move a lot of people around. But it's tough. It's really tough. But at number 3, I'm going to have John Harbaugh. As a Titans fan, it's tough for me to put him that high, but I have to because, again, we look at the Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. I just have him at 3. I don't know why, but he's just there. This is tough. I mean, all these, I have this list right here, but really, you could really go wherever you want here. Like I said, 3 through 10, in my opinion, are the toughest to rank. But at number 4, I actually have Sean McDermott. So the reason why I have Sean McDermott here is just because of how quickly the Bills have gone from what they were 3, 4, 5 years ago to where they are now. Of the quickest turnaround that I've seen in a while. And they've gone from one of the worst teams in the NFL to one of the best teams in the NFL. And, a lot has to do with the head coach. So that's why he is there at number 4. Number 5, again, really, a lot of this can be moved, like I said before, a lot of this can be moved around. But at number 5, I'm going to have... Gosh, I just want to switch some things around now, but... Yeah, this is actually pretty tough. But I'm going to go ahead and say at number 5, I'm going to have Sean McVay. I'm going to have him at number 5, and then right after him, both the Sean Payton, I'm going to have him at number 6. It's tough because you could really put, Payton up at 3, 4, 5 if you wanted to, but I have him at 6. Man. Number 7, I'll put Bruce Arians there at number 7. Reason is he's coming off a Super Bowl. But, it's tough for me to put him this high just because people can make the argument he has Tom Brady. But, it's not only the offensive side of the ball there at Tampa Bay, it's defense as well. And lead the team to the Super Bowl isn't that easy, even if you do have Tom Brady. So I'll put Bruce Arians at 7. And then right after Bruce Arians, I'm going to have to put Pete Carroll there at number 8. Now, that's tough. I could really put Pete Carroll in front of Bruce Arians, but Pete Carroll's down there just because, or I should say up here just because, obviously, Super Bowl. And I forgot to mention, obviously, Peyton has a Super Bowl. McVay has been to the Super Bowl. That's why he's up there. But Carroll, he could easily have 3, 4 Super Bowls if he wanted to. The team that was built in Seattle was an absolute god squad. LOB, that team was insane. You just run the ball, you have 2 Super Bowls, and then who knows what happens after that. But, again, the Seattle Seahawks are a team that literally gets, before the season starts, a lot of people were saying Seahawks, they're done for. And then every single year, they top their division or in the playoffs. And it's pretty impressive that they've been this good for this long. So, and a lot of that has to do with Pete Carroll. At number 9, this is where it gets interesting because y'all are wondering where Vrabel is, 9 and 10. Number 9, it's got to be Mike Tomlin. Number 9 has got to be Mike Tomlin, and then number 10 is Vrabel. Now, a lot of coaches you could sneak in this top 10 list and not have a problem with. But in my opinion, Mike Tomlin's at 9. He has a Super Bowl. And then we talk about Vrabel, who doesn't have a Super Bowl. But in my opinion, Vrabel is a player's coach. People, if you ask any player on the Tennessee Titans how they feel about Mike Vrabel, they're going to absolutely they'll say that they love Vrabel. Vrabes is a guy that's played in the league. He has won Super Bowls. He's caught touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Done a lot of stuff in his career, and it can relate to these guys very well. So, he's definitely a player's coach. You've seen, clips of him at practice, literally putting on pads and going out there, and doing drills with these guys. So, definitely a player's coach, and that's why I have him so high. Because a lot of these guys that I've just said, they're not like Vrabel. They haven't had past NFL play experience. The guys that are after him, most of those guys haven't had past NFL play experience either. So, I just like Vrabel. I like Vrabel a lot. Some people might have them out, outside their top 15. Some people might have them have Mike Vrabel in their top 10. And you could say I'm being a little biased, but in my opinion, Mike Vrabel is a top 10 head coach in the NFL. So that's going to round out the list there. So we'll go into top 15. I'll throw in a couple names here. Frank Reich's a guy. You could say Zimmer. I don't know about that, but I mean, you could. You could say Zimmer. I mean, and then you have, you got Shanahan. You got Kyle Shanahan, who's definitely, arguably, could be a top 10 head coach. You got Matt LaFleur, another guy that has had pretty successful, years in Green Bay. The reason I'm not having him in my top 10 is because, Aaron Rodgers is, a lot of that is because of Aaron Rodgers, and he hadn't been in a Super Bowl yet, which you can make the argument for Vrabel, but, I just don't have him in my top 10. It is what it is. You have the obviously you have Stefanski, who has done a fantastic job as the first-year Browns head coach, taking them to the playoffs. Arguably one of more impressive turnarounds too. We mentioned the Bills earlier, how their turnaround has been, but Stefanski is another guy that you could definitely have in your top 10. I think if he gets a couple more years in the playoffs, maybe get some more playoff wins, he could definitely get up to maybe even top 5, definitely top 10, but maybe even top 5. But those just are a couple other names in there that I have around 10 that could possibly be in the top 10. But I have Braves at 10, and I think my list is solid. Y'all let me know down below if y'all would change anything. If I have a coach too high, if I have a coach too low, if I didn't even mention a coach you thought was in the top 10, let me know. But yeah, Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, he deserves to be a top 10. He deserves to be in people's list as a top 10 head coach in the NFL for a lot of reasons, not just because he's a good coach, but other reasons that I mentioned. He's a player's coach. Everyone loves him in the organization. I'm so glad we gave this dude a shot, because I don't know where the organization would be if we didn't have Vrabel. And I thought it was kind of crazy. Yeah. I was kind of shocked. I was really, really kind of shocked. That we fired Mike Mularkey, because the season that we won that playoff game against Kansas City, we were down 21-3. Mariota throws touchdown pass to himself. That game was the last year that Mike Mularkey was our head coach, and man, our players love Mike Mularkey. You could argue they loved him more than they liked Vrabel. I wouldn't say that, but again, Mike Mularkey, he got us to the playoffs, and he won a playoff game, and then we fired him, which was kind of shocking to me. But man, I'm super happy that happened, because Vrabel, in my opinion, is just a perfect fit to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, we are going to come at you, and we are going to run the ball. And that's exactly what Vrabel wants to do. And he's a defensive-minded head coach, and it's kind of tough, because you could argue that our defense is terrible and Vrabel is a defensive head coach. I think that's going to change this year. He's going to get everyone in the right spots to make it easy on the defensive side of the ball. I think a lot's going to change. Last year, bottom of the league in defense. I think we were like 30, 29 or something like that. And I think if we can get ourselves back up in the top 16, top half of the league. I've said it and I'll say it again. I think we can win a Super Bowl if our defense is in the top half of the league. All our defense has to be is average. Top half of the league would be fantastic. I'll be super happy if we are top 16 in the NFL defensively next year, because we've got an offense that can score the ball every time we get an opportunity. And if we can just get a defense out there that can stop whoever we're playing a couple times a game, if we get the ball the same amount of times, our opponent gets the ball and we score every time, we're going to win. Obviously we're not going to score every time, but, with our offense, it's going to be tough to stop. That's what I'm saying. So we can just put a defense out there that can get stops, and I think Vrabel can do that. I think John Robinson has done a great job this offseason signing Bud Dupree, and I think we could bring in one more edge rusher. I think we could bring in a veteran corner. Those names, I'll go ahead and say it. Justin Houston, Melvin, Ingram are a couple of those guys that I'm thinking of. And also cornerback-wise, I wouldn't mind bringing in a Brian Poole. I wouldn't mind bringing in a Richard Sherman. I would actually love Richard Sherman to come in here to go along with Jack Rabbit, a couple older guys that can actually coach up these younger guys, and hopefully Christian Fulton and obviously Caleb Farley, they can coach those guys up, and hopefully they'll turn out to be really good cornerbacks in the NFL, which I think Christian Fulton can be, and I think Caleb Farley can be as well. So, again, I wouldn't mind bringing in a veteran presence there at cornerback as well. So, yeah, here's my top 10 list. Let me know how I did down below. But with that being said, that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Until next time, I'll see y'all.